September 1944, Kansas. Corporal Anna Schmidt stood at the barracks window of the women's prisoner compound, watching what seemed like a funny mess of military mistakes on the training field past the fence. American soldiers went through drills with a relaxed style that was nothing like the strict order she'd seen in German training. "Look at them," she said to Lieutenant Clara Fisher, pointing at the American troops doing field exercises. "No matching steps, no neat parade lines. They look like farmers pretending to be soldiers." Clara joined her at the window, eyeing the scene with the sharp gaze of someone who'd worked 8 years in German radio intelligence. "Their group discipline is awful," she agreed. "In our army, such messiness would get you punished right away." The 42 German women prisoners at Fort Leavenworth came from different military jobs. Radio operators, nurses, office workers, captured during the Normandy battles. Most, like Anna, strongly believed in German military superiority and thought the Allies were weaker. They said American victories came from having more factories and supplies, not better soldiers. "The Americans win with numbers and resources," Anna went on, repeating ideas she'd learned in her service. "Not with better soldiers or training. Look how they move, no teamwork, no order." German soldiers would do those drills with perfect unity. Through the fence, they saw American troops practicing small group tactics in a wooded area. The soldiers moved on their own, not in tight formation, using hand signals and making choices based on the land and situation. To Anna's German-trained eyes, it looked sloppy and weak. "Miss Schmidt," called Sergeant Carter from the barracks door, using the polite tone American guards used even for enemy prisoners. "Colonel Hayes wants you in the office building. He wants to talk about the prisoner work program." As Anna walked through the compound toward the meeting, she passed near the training field fence and overheard American instructors guiding soldiers through battle practice. The training focused on taking charge, solving problems, and adapting, not the memorized moves and match steps she thought made a proper army. "Terrible training style," she muttered. "No wonder they needed so much equipment to beat us." Colonel Hayes's office looked out over the main training area, and through his windows, Anna could see various drills happening. Fitness exercises, weapon training, battle practice, all done with that same relaxed style that seemed so unprofessional to her German-trained mind. "Miss Schmidt," Hayes started after she sat down, "we're starting a new program where well-behaved prisoners can watch American military training. The goal is to learn about our culture and see that our ways, though different from German ones, work well too." "You want us to watch your training?" Anna couldn't hide her doubt, thinking of American soldiers who lacked the order and precision she believed made a great army. Hayes stayed calm, though his eyes hinted he'd heard this attitude before. "I want you to watch with an open mind and decide based on what you see, not what you assume. You might be surprised." The idea seemed strange, enemy prisoners judging their captors' training. But Anna's intelligence training made her curious about American military ways, even if she was sure she'd confirm her beliefs. German training made better soldiers. American wins came from factories, not skill. "I'll watch," she agreed. "But I think I'll just see what I already know about which army is better." Hayes gave a small smile. "Then you've got nothing to lose by looking closely. Training observations start tomorrow at 6 a.m. As Anna returned to the barracks, she told the other prisoners about the program. Their reactions varied from interest to mockery, but all believed German training was the best, while American methods were a weak substitute backed by factory power. Tomorrow, Anna would watch the American training and note its flaws for the detailed reports she kept, even as a prisoner, never guessing that what she saw might shake every belief she held about military skill, training ideas, and how discipline leads to battle success. In the early morning darkness, barely lit, Sergeant Carter led Anna and 5 other German prisoners to an observation spot overlooking Fort Leavenworth's main training area. They got notebooks and were told to write down anything interesting about American military ways, a request Anna found either bold or silly. Sergeant Carter spoke in clear German. "The unit you'll watch today is finishing advanced infantry training. These soldiers will head to the Pacific in 6 weeks. Look closely and ask questions if you don't get something." As the sun came up, Anna was surprised by how the American soldiers lined up. It wasn't the stiff, perfect formation she knew from her army. but a practical setup showing men who knew their jobs without constant orders. "See anything strange?" asked Captain Larson, the training leader who joined their group. "They're not standing super straight," Anna said. "In our army, soldiers hold a tight posture in line. Your men look relaxed." "They're focused," Larson said. "We don't waste energy on fancy lineups in field training. These soldiers know their goal and what to do. We build discipline into their sense of purpose, not their stance." To Anna, the difference seemed small, but she wrote notes about the American style. The big surprise came when the drills started. The first exercise was small group movement through different terrains. Instead of marching in perfect step, American soldiers moved on their own, adjusting to the ground and cover while keeping the group together. To Anna, it looked messy, but she saw the squad moved fast and helped each other. "Why don't they move as one?" asked Clara, speaking for the German observers. "In our training, squads march in tight formation. Because the ground isn't always even," Larson answered. "Stiff formations look nice on parade fields, but they don't work in real fights. We teach soldiers to think for themselves while staying with the team. Each man picks his moves based on the situation." Before we see how this training changed what these German prisoners thought about military skill, tell us where you're reading from around the world. We love hearing from our global audience as we explore these cool stories of military ideas meeting battlefield truth. Share your location in the comments below. Over the next hour, Anna watched American training that challenged her ideas about discipline. Soldiers were told to question orders if they didn't make sense for the fight. Junior soldiers made their own choices in practice battles. Training focused on solving problems, not just following rules. "This wouldn't work in our army," she told Larson during a break. "German strength comes from total obedience, moving together and following leaders." "And how did that go?" Larson asked quietly, pointing to the German prisoners watching. "Your army cared more about obedience than initiative. Ours cares about finishing the mission over strict rules. You're here as prisoners. Our soldiers are getting ready for their next fight. That shows which training works better." The words hurt Anna more than she wanted to admit. She'd been captured because her German unit kept following old orders even when the battle changed. The strict obedience she liked had led to her unit's defeat. "Tomorrow," Larson said, "you'll see advanced tactics training where soldiers plan and do complex missions with little officer help. I think you'll learn something." As they went back to the prisoner compound, Anna's mind was full of tough questions. American training seemed loose, yet it made soldiers who could handle complex tasks alone. German training focused on perfect order and obedience, but it led to defeat. Could she have been wrong about what made great training? The thought felt wrong, but her intelligence training made the evidence hard to ignore. Day 2 brought advanced tactical drills where American soldiers planned and did practice battles with a freedom unthinkable in German structure. Anna watched a squad of 8 enlisted men with no officers study a tactical problem, make a plan, and carry it out with teamwork that didn't look like German synchronized moves but still worked well. "Where are the officers?" asked Lieutenant Mueller, a former Air Force radio officer in the group. "Who's leading this mission?" "Sergeant Brooks is the squad leader," Larson replied, pointing to a sergeant talking with his team, not giving orders. "In our army, sergeants lead small missions. Officers set the big plan, but we trust sergeants to handle the action." "You let enlisted men make leader decisions?" Anna's voice showed shock. In her army, officers kept tight control, and enlisted men followed orders without ideas. "We don't just let them, we expect it," Larson said. "Combat is messy. Radios fail. Officers get hurt. Situations change fast. We train every soldier to think on their own and make battle choices. That keeps our units strong even when the chain of command breaks." As the drill went on, Anna saw what Larson meant. The American squad faced a sudden problem, an enemy position in an unexpected spot, and quickly changed their plan without waiting for higher-ups. The soldiers talked clearly, shifted positions, and used new tactics to handle the threat. It took just 4 minutes from spotting the issue to fixing it. "In our training," Anna admitted slowly, "an unexpected problem means asking for new orders from commanders. We'd report the change and wait for instructions. How long would that take? Captain Larson asked. 15 to 30 minutes, depending on how fast we could reach the commanders, she said. In a fight, that's often too long, Larson replied, pointing to the American squad, now regrouping after finishing the drill. We train soldiers to solve problems right away because that's what battles need. Your German training makes soldiers obey perfectly. Ours makes them solve problems well. Over the next week, Anna and the other German prisoners watched training that kept challenging their ideas about what makes a great army. Fitness drills focused on real strength and stamina, not looking perfect for parades. American soldiers, who didn't seem as polished as German troops, showed better endurance in long missions. Weapons training taught soldiers how guns work, not just how to use them, so Americans could fix equipment in the field where German soldiers would need specialists. Leadership training at every level pushed initiative and problem-solving. Even low-ranking soldiers learned small team tactics because the American system expected anyone might need to lead. It's a totally different idea, Clara said during an evening talk. German training sees soldiers as parts of a machine, working perfectly together. American training sees soldiers as independent workers who team up for shared goals. And which idea makes better fighters? Lieutenant Mueller asked quietly. Everyone knew the answer but didn't want to say it. Anna had been taking detailed notes on American training, at first to point out its flaws for future reports. But as she saw more, her notes started comparing American and German ways, questioning beliefs she'd held her whole career. Captain Larson, she said after a very eye-opening session, can I ask you something personal? Sure, he said. Did you make your training to beat German methods on purpose, or did it grow on its own? Larson thought for a moment. American training comes from our country's spirit and battle experience. We're a nation built on people taking charge and working together. Our army shows those values. We trust soldiers to think for themselves because that's how Americans solve problems. It works well against armies built on strict control and total obedience, but that's almost by chance. So, you're saying your army's strength comes from your culture, not just battle plans? Anna asked. I'm saying our training works because it fits who we are as a people. You can't copy another country's army without copying the values that make it work. German training makes perfect obedience because your culture values order and authority. American training makes initiative and problem-solving because those are what we value in our people. The explanation hit Anna hard. She'd thought American training was just a worse version of German methods, but Larson said they were completely different, built on different values, and America's values might make more flexible soldiers. 2 weeks into the observation program, Colonel Hayes invited Anna to watch officer training courses where American lieutenants and captains learned a command style that seemed to go against everything she'd learned in German officer school. The main job of an American officer, said Major Thompson during a leadership class Anna was allowed to watch, is to train strong subordinates who can work on their own. Your success as a leader isn't about how well your soldiers follow orders, but how well they complete missions when you're not there. To Anna, this was shocking. In German officer training, success meant keeping total control and making sure orders were followed perfectly. The idea that officers should help soldiers act independently felt like giving up leadership. What happens when soldiers disagree with orders? Anna asked during the question time, using Colonel Hayes' permission to join in. It depends, Thompson answered. In battle, orders are followed right away, and we talk later if there's time. During planning and training, we encourage soldiers to question orders they don't understand or think are wrong. Some of our best battle ideas came from regular soldiers or young officers who saw better ways than their leaders first thought. But that weakens a commander's authority, Anna argued. A strong army needs strict discipline and total obedience. Does it? Major Thompson asked gently. You're a captured German officer, Miss Schmidt. Your army focused on strict discipline and blind obedience. How well did that work for Germany's success? The question was sharp but not mean, said in the straightforward way Americans seem to like. Anna had no good answer because the proof was clear. German training made soldiers who followed bad orders perfectly, leading to big losses that quick thinking might have stopped. I've noticed your notes on our training, Colonel Hayes said after the class. You've written a lot about American methods. Would you share your thoughts? Not for secrets. The war's almost over, and this isn't secret. But I'm curious how a German officer sees our training. Anna paused, then agreed. Over the next week, she wrote a detailed report comparing American and German training ideas. The work forced her to face conclusions she'd been avoiding. American training made soldiers who could handle surprises. German training made soldiers who followed set plans perfectly but struggled when things changed. American leaders shared decision-making widely. German leaders kept control at the top, slowing things down when fast choices were needed. American culture valued completing missions over following rules exactly. German culture cared more about perfect rules, even when situations needed quick changes. "This is great work," Hayes said after reading her report. "You've shown the key differences between our armies, but you avoided the big question. Which way works better? You listed differences without saying which is stronger." Anna looked at her report, knowing Hayes was right. She described the differences but dodged the clear truth her own experience showed. "The American way is better," she said, the words hard but true. German training made soldiers great at parade drills and moving together. But American training makes soldiers better where it counts. In fighting, adapting, and completing missions. "That's a tough thing for a German officer to say," Hayes noted kindly. "It feels impossible," Anna replied. "But facts don't care about my feelings or pride. I've watched your training for 3 weeks. I've seen American soldiers do with quick thinking and flexibility what German soldiers couldn't do with perfect obedience. It's not a nice truth for German military culture, but ignoring it doesn't change it." Hayes looked at her thoughtfully. "Miss Schmidt, would you help us create training materials for rebuilding Germany after the war? Your understanding of both German and American military ways could help make programs to teach Germans new ideas about armies." The offer surprised Anna, but she saw its value. If Germany was to rebuild well, it needed to learn from countries that succeeded where German ways failed. That learning would work better coming from Germans who understood both sides, not Americans pushing strange ideas. "I'll help," she decided, "but I want to be honest. Not saying American ways are perfect, but explaining why they work and how they could fit post-war Germany." "That's just what we need," Hayes said. "Honest analysis that respects both cultures but judges training by how well it works in battle, not how it looks on a parade field." By November 1944, Germany's military was in deep trouble, and prisoners were starting to see that German superiority was just talk, not truth. For Anna, watching American training had made things painfully clear. German military culture had cared about the wrong things. Looking good over winning, obedience over action, and strict rules over smart problem solving. "I've been asked to give a talk," she told the German prisoners during their evening meeting, "about what we've learned from American training. Colonel Hayes wants me to share our findings with other prisoner groups and later help make training materials for post-war Germany." The news got mixed reactions. Some prisoners thought it was working with the enemy. Others, like Clara, saw it as practical. "We lost the war partly because we believed our own stories about being the best," Clara said. "If Anna's work helps future Germans avoid those mistakes, that's good for our country." Over the next month, Anna gave talks to several prisoner groups, always focusing on the same ideas. American training worked because it matched American values. German training failed because it focused on the wrong things. Rebuilding Germany's army needed to learn from Allied success without just copying their ways. "The big lesson," she said in one talk, "isn't that American ways are always better. It's that good military training must fit the society it serves. Americans trained soldiers to take action because their culture valued solving problems on their own. Germans trained soldiers to obey because our culture valued following leaders. In modern battles, taking action proved more useful than obedience." "So, you're saying German culture is worse?" challenged a listener, a former tank officer still holding on to German army myths. "I'm saying our military choices didn't work well in modern war," Anna replied carefully. "That's not saying our whole culture is bad. But we need to look honestly at what worked and what didn't, instead of believing old stories about being the best." As 1944 ended and the Allies' victory became certain, American leaders started big education programs for prisoners who would help rebuild Germany. Anna was a key part of this, creating training materials that compared military ideas and explained why American ways worked well. "You're getting a lot of influence," Captain Larson said during one of their regular meetings. "Prisoners respect your German army background, but also trust your thoughts on American methods. That mix makes you great at connecting cultures." "I'm just being honest about what I've seen," Anna said. "American training works because it makes soldiers who can think for themselves while working as a team. German training failed because it made soldiers who needed direct orders to act. Those are facts, not judgments about our people, but they are judgments about what makes a strong army. Those judgments challenge German myths about army greatness," Larson pointed out. "That's why they need to be said," Anna answered firmly. "Germany lost partly because we believed our own stories. If my work helps future Germans see that a strong army needs flexibility, not just obedience, it's worth any criticism from people stuck on old ideas." In January 1945, as Germany's defeat sped up, Anna got a formal job in the post-war education program. She'd stay in American custody but work as a civilian teacher, not a prisoner, teaching Germans about new ways to organize and train armies. "Your job might last years," Colonel Hayes explained. "Rebuilding Germany will need big changes in how people think about armies and leadership. Your experience as a German officer who understands American ways makes you perfect for this." "I get it," Anna said. "I'm ready to help. Even if some Germans call me a traitor for saying American training was better than ours." "You're not saying it's better," Hayes corrected. "You're saying it's effective. There's a difference. American methods work for American soldiers. Germany's lesson isn't to copy America, but to build training that values action and problem-solving in a way that fits Germany." As winter grew colder and the war's end neared, Anna thought about how much her views had changed. 3 months ago, she'd laughed at American soldiers for not moving with German precision. Now she saw that precision was the problem, sticking to strict rules when situations needed flexibility. The American soldiers she'd called sloppy farmers were actually well-trained professionals whose relaxed style showed confidence, not carelessness. Their training focused on what mattered in battle: action, problem-solving, flexibility, and mission focus. German training focused on things that looked good in parades but didn't help in real fights: perfect moves, blind obedience, and strict rules. "Our soldiers weren't better," she wrote in her journal that night. "We were trained to care about the wrong things." It took being a prisoner and watching the enemy train to see that military greatness isn't about parade perfection but about winning battles. "That's the lesson I'll teach Germans for years, to help them admit past mistakes and build a better future." March 1945 brought Germany's collapse and the war's end in Europe. For Anna, it started a new mission. She signed civilian work contracts with the U.S. Army's Government Division, tasked with creating training programs for Germany's rebuild. "Your first job," Colonel Hayes, now helping plan the occupation, explained, "is to make materials that teach German officers about American training ideas for rebuilding their defense forces under Allied watch." Anna saw the challenge right away. Former German officers would hate lessons from winning enemies, especially ones that went against their beliefs about German army greatness. She'd need to show American methods as effective ideas to study, not as better options to copy. "I want to focus on comparing the two," she told Hayes during planning. "Not saying American ways are best, but showing what they do differently and why it works for them. Let German officers decide for themselves based on facts, not feel preached at about their mistakes." This approach worked when she started teaching in occupied Munich. Former German officers came skeptical and defensive, but Anna's status as a respected German radio officer gave her trust that American teachers couldn't. "I was like you," she told her first class of 40 German officers. "I watched American training and thought it was messy and weak, but I made myself look closely and question my beliefs. What I learned changed everything I thought about military strength." She explained the same things she'd seen at Fort Leavenworth: American focus on action over obedience, shared decision-making instead of top-down control, mission focus over strict rules. She gave clear examples comparing German and American ways. "Think of this situation," she said. A squad finds an unexpected enemy during an advance. German training says report to leaders, wait for new orders, then act. American training says the squad leader judges the situation, decides right away, and adapts without waiting. Which way works better in fast-changing battles? The German approach keeps tight command control, argued Major Klein, a former tank officer loyal to old German military ideas. Without central control, units act alone and lose the big picture. Does control matter if it means missing chances to win? Anna replied, "The Americans beat us because their soldiers could adapt faster than our commanders could give new orders. We cared more about control than winning, and we paid for it." The talks were intense but helpful. Former German officers faced tough truths about what makes a strong army, slowly seeing that their defeat wasn't from lack of bravery or weak soldiers, but from training that valued the wrong things for modern war. "You're making them rethink everything?" Captain Larson said, now working on occupation duties and sometimes joining Anna's classes. "It's hard for them, but it's needed." "It's what I had to do," Anna said. "I questioned everything I thought made a great army. If they do the same, we can build something better than what failed so badly." Over the next months, Anna's reputation grew among both American leaders and German soldiers. She became known as the German officer who could honestly admit German mistakes while still respecting German soldiers, and explain American success without saying Americans were naturally better. "The key," she said in one strong class, "is that military training must fit a country's culture and real battles. Americans train for action because their culture values solving problems. Germans trained for obedience because our culture valued following leaders. Neither is right or wrong, but in modern war, flexibility beats strict rules. That's what we need to learn." As 1945 ended and the occupation grew, Anna's work went beyond army training to bigger questions about how soldiers and civilians work together in a democracy. Her main point stayed the same. Honestly, looking at past mistakes was key to building a better future, and learning from former enemies meant putting aside pride to see what they did better. By winter 1946, as Cold War tensions rose, American leaders saw that Germany's new army needed to counter Soviet threats, not just avoid rebuilding too strongly. Anna was at the center of talks about creating German forces that learned from past mistakes without copying American ways completely. "We need German officers who think for themselves but work under democratic rules," said General Carter, the top American officer planning the rebuild. "Your programs need to teach that balance, action, and problem-solving without the strict control of the old German army." It was a tricky job. Too much focus on American ways would make German officers feel like they were being forced to change their culture. Too little change risked bringing back the rigid control that led to German failures. Anna worked to find a middle path that respected German military history while adding lessons from American success. "I've been working on an idea called mission-type tactics with democratic responsibility," she explained in a talk to senior American and German officials. "It mixes the German tradition of giving soldiers freedom to meet goals with American focus on action and democratic civilian control." The idea clicked with both sides. German officers liked hearing about their old flexible tactics, which had been twisted by Nazi control. American officials liked the democratic control that kept the military from overpowering civilians. "This is a great mix," said Brigadier General Fischer, a former German officer now helping the occupation, no relation to Anna's friend Clara. "You've taken the best from both sides and made something that could work for post-war Germany. But putting it into action was tough. Old German officers struggled to drop their habits of strict control. Younger Germans, turned off by Nazi military ways, rejected anything that seemed too strict. Anna kept adjusting her teaching for different groups, always stressing the same point. Good military training balances discipline with action, order with flexibility. "Some days, I feel like I'm teaching cats to swim," she told Clara, who had joined her teaching team after proving she could also connect German and American military ideas. Old officers want strict control. Young Germans hate anything that feels like Nazi days. Finding a middle path is so hard, but we have to. "It's needed," Clara replied. "Germany needs an army that protects democracy without threatening it. That needs the balance you're teaching, discipline without control, action without chaos." By late 1946, Anna's programs had trained over 500 former German officers in new ways to lead armies. Feedback showed the classes worked, with students saying they learned why American methods succeeded and how to adapt those ideas for Germany. "Your work has done more than we hoped," Colonel Hayes told her in a review meeting. "Other Allied countries want your training materials for their own occupation zones. You're the main voice now, showing how to fix German military culture without losing what's good in our traditions," Colonel Hayes told Anna. The praise felt good but also heavy. Anna had started as a prisoner laughing at American training. Now she was a respected expert on military reform known worldwide. It felt strange, but it mirrored Germany's own change, from a defeated enemy to a possible ally, from strict military rule to democracy. "I'm just being honest about what I saw," Anna replied to Hayes's praise. American training worked because it fit their values and real battles. German training failed because it cared more about looking good than winning. The lesson is simple. Armies succeed when training matches a country's values and battle needs. Germany's challenge is to build training that supports democracy while staying strong. As 1946 ended, Anna was named senior consultant to the Allied High Commission's Military Training Division, a role that would shape Germany's new army for years. The former German officer who once mocked American soldiers was now designing a new German military culture, built partly on lessons from those same Americans she'd called weak. In summer 1955, 10 years after the war ended, Anna stood at the new Bundeswehr training center near Munich, watching young German soldiers train in a way that mixed German traditions with American lessons on flexibility and action. The soldiers moved with purpose and discipline, but their training focused on thinking for themselves, not just obeying orders. "Impressive," said General Parker, visiting from U.S. Army headquarters to see the training Anna helped create. "They look professional and disciplined, but different from the old German style. These soldiers are taught to think, not just follow." "That was the goal," Anna said, watching a squad leader make a quick tactical choice in a drill. "Build an army that blends German tradition with American ideas about adaptability and action." It took 10 years, but we're getting there. The Bundeswehr training program showed everything Anna had learned since that day in 1944 when she stood at a barracks window, mocking American soldiers. The new German army valued democracy, civilian control, and independent thinking while keeping the discipline and standards of German tradition. "Do you ever regret it?" asked Clara, now a senior training official who joined Anna to watch the graduation exercises. "Spending 10 years teaching Germans to use methods you once laughed at?" "Never," Anna said firmly. "I regret believing German propaganda about our greatness, but not the decade I've spent helping Germany learn from its mistakes." That afternoon's graduation ceremony had speeches from German and Allied leaders, all stressing democracy, professionalism, and learning from past errors. When Anna was called to the stage to be honored for her work in rebuilding the military, she felt deep emotion at Germany's progress. 10 years ago, she told the soldiers and officials, "I was a German officer who thought our training was better than anything our enemies had. I laughed at American soldiers because they didn't march perfectly, because they questioned orders, because they valued action over obedience." She paused, looking at young German soldiers raised in a new Germany. "It took being a prisoner and watching American training with an open mind to see I was wrong about what makes a great army. German training made soldiers who looked good in parades but struggled when battles needed quick thinking. American training made soldiers who seemed casual but were incredibly effective when they had to solve problems on their own. The lesson I learned and spent 10 years teaching is that good military training must meet real battle needs, not just look nice with perfect marches and blind obedience. Modern war values action, flexibility, and shared decisions. The Bundeswehr you're joining is built on those ideas, mixing the best of German tradition with lessons from why our enemies won." As the ceremony ended and young soldiers went to their first assignments, Anna thought about her unlikely path from prisoner to leader of Germany's military rebuild. It meant letting go of pride, facing hard truths, and seeing that learning from former enemies was a way to serve her country, not betray it. "Any last thoughts?" asked Colonel Hayes, who had come from Washington for the ceremony. He'd become a friend, someone who understood how hard and important Anna's work was. "Just gratitude," Anna said. watching Bundeswehr soldiers act with discipline that honors German traditions while embracing democracy, gratitude for being captured by people who taught instead of punished, for being pushed to watch training that changed her ideas, for the chance to build something better than what failed so badly. As evening came and the ceremonies ended, Anna took a final walk through the training center that showed 10 years of work and change. The young German soldiers Anna passed looked confident and skilled, trained in ways that would have shocked the old German army but were now normal in Germany's democratic military. "Our soldiers were never better," she whispered, recalling her proud words from that first day at Fort Leavenworth. "We just believed our own stories and paid a huge price for that mistake." The real strength came from Americans who were so sure of their methods that they let enemy prisoners watch closely, trusting that honest observation would show their success. The greatest win, Anna learned, wasn't beating an enemy in battle, but changing your thinking by setting aside old ideas long enough to see that former enemies had important lessons to share. The strongest armies, she realized, valued results over looks, real ability over fancy ceremonies, and the bravery to admit when old beliefs were wrong. As she drove away from the training center toward her home in Munich, Anna felt proud of what Germany's new military had accomplished. Not because it copied American ways, but because it learned from American success while building something truly German and democratic. An army that could protect without being a threat, that valued action without losing discipline, and that understood real greatness comes from flexibility, not sticking to strict rules. The American soldiers she once laughed at had taught her the biggest lesson. Strength isn't about never being wrong, but about having the courage to admit mistakes and learn from those who did better where you failed.